It's happened, baby. Donovan Dent is coming to UCLA. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh boy, the big get in the transfer portal for the Bruins. This is Locked On UCLA. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer reacting to it. Man, the Bruins have landed a big-time star. I saw it from Joe Tipton of On3. UCLA gets Donovan Dent from New Mexico. Already carved them up when New Mexico beat UCLA earlier in the year. And boy, oh boy, is that a huge get. Talk about elite portal gets, right? Some of the stuff and the talk from last year's team was that, hey, they didn't have a scoring guard. They didn't have an elite guard. Donovan Dent is an immediate fix to all of that. Immediate, all right? You move Skyy to the 2. You let him shoot the basketball and say, Clark, shoot it. Dent can pass the ball, score the ball, shoot the ball, defend, rebound. He can do it all. SoCal kid that probably should have been a Bruin in the first place a few years ago. Whatever. But that's huge. You think about all that complaining Cronin has put in about NIL support that he did not have 2 years ago. And now you talk about going to this year when UCLA was bidding against Gonzaga, against Kentucky, and then next thing you know, they come in with a huge win. This is an expensive get. Now, did they outbid Kentucky? I don't know that information. I haven't seen it, haven't read it, not sure what the whole package looks like. Did they outbid the Zags? I don't know. I don't quite know if it was more dollars. But they're in the same ballpark. The Bruins can be competitive. And he chose Mick Cronin's UCLA system as opposed to Kentucky. So maybe Cronin knows what he's doing. All right, that is a huge get that somewhat changes the trajectory of next year in 25-26. I was talking about Jon Rothstein early in the day, in my previous podcast of CBS Sports, that if UCLA gets Dent, they're immediately a top 5 team. That's what Jon Rothstein said yesterday. I was seeing a lot of heat about UCLA maybe getting Dent. It was slowly moving. Reading this On3 article from Tipton about Dent, he was waiting. He was going to wait until Final Four weekend to make his decision, right? This is the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. A guy who scores 20 points per game, 6 assists per game, multiple rebounds, and a great defender at blocking shots, getting steals, close to 40% from 3, 49% from the floor, 50% from the floor for his career. Oh, by the way, a steal per game, a block per game, 78% from the free throw line. Can you imagine if UCLA had a clutch free throw shooter, a 3-point shooter, an overall shooter, a guy who can pass the ball without turning it over? If he does, he can steal it and block shots. And a point guard, the Mountain West Player of the Year, for a team that early in the year was one of those teams that just beat UCLA, like flat out dominated from start to finish. Dent is huge. Earlier in the day, I think I looked and saw he was the number 2 recruit in the transfer portal. And the other one, number 1, followed his coach to Iowa. So when it comes to bidding for the top recruit, Dent maybe could have followed Richard Pitino, didn't. When it ended up being Kentucky, who was in a tournament, Gonzaga, who UCLA is bidding for the services, but a SoCal kid, you got to keep these SoCal kids home, or if you have a chance to bring them home, this could be as impactful as Johnny Juzang coming to UCLA. That is how impactful as it can be in terms of modern UCLA transfers. What was impactful? Juzang comes to UCLA, leads them to a Final Four run, almost on the verge of a national championship game appearance. This is the earth-shattering transfer news UCLA needed to jumpstart their next season. And with all the news that Skyy Clark's returning, Trent Perry's returning, Eric Dailey Jr. is returning, Tyler Bilodeau's returning, that's a solid starting 5, and that doesn't even include UCLA getting a center and retaining a Diamata. Haven't heard much about that. Haven't seen what it means for Sebastian Mack. Huge news for the Bruins to get a guy of this caliber. Because now it's like, wait a minute. What they were missing against Tennessee, when they couldn't pass the ball, when they were getting trapped in the half court, when they were just getting utterly beaten because Zakai Ziegler would run around and pass the ball, and then Chaz Lanier would score. You got multiple weapons in one, a Swiss Army knife, if you will, in Donovan Dent. A huge get. You can go look at the other Locked On podcasts, other podcasts in this network, thinking maybe he's going to Gonzaga. I believe I was texting one of the other hosts, like, oh, that's a good guy for you guys to get. UCLA to get. He texted me, I was like, oh, let's go. That's a huge, huge get for the Bruins. Highly coveted. And not just to be like, hey, it was a long-winded process. No, it was a very short process. Goes in the portal Monday, then it's Tuesday, and then wait. By Friday, he's a Bruin. Like, get in our time machine and let's fast forward to November. All right? Like, let's go. Of course, there's still a lot more work to be done. There's still a lot more work to be done. And maybe this is a lot of the money they had to flesh out to this guy in the portal. They still need somebody to theoretically replace Kobe Johnson and Lazar Stefanovic. Okay, those are two guys graduating. They clearly made their move with Dylan Andrews moving on and bringing in a guy and a senior, a 3-year leader at New Mexico to play at UCLA in Donovan Dent. Huge get. Now securing the return of Diamata, another big, another 3, and UCLA does not need to play 10 deep next season. They don't need to like they did this year. They can play a much smaller rotation, but they need another big while making sure Mata returns, and then they need a 3. Are they going to go out and secure Braden Burries, who isn't necessarily looking UCLA's way right now? He is a high school class of 25 commit, I think still looking for a home, and even if he's committed, he can still find his way maybe to UCLA like Trent Perry later in the recruiting cycle did last season, or you go find somebody in the portal, and there's so many different players. If you're looking big, I talk Magoon Guath. There's other superstars available that won't cost as much, but man, Donovan Dent is a game changer. The thing UCLA lacked this year was the elite guard. Now, Skyy Clark slowly came into his own shooting the basketball, and if he wasn't in foul trouble, I think he was ready for a big game in Lexington, the place he had committed earlier in his career. He was ready to have a big game in that second round of the tournament. But what happened? Clark got in foul trouble. Eric Dailey Jr. got in foul trouble. Do you know who almost led his team to the Sweet 16? Donovan Dent. Well, they almost beat Michigan State. They got that first round win. That was easy money in my bracket to be like, hey, look at that. New Mexico's going to win because they are really good and underseeded. Okay? That was huge for UCLA. I mean, I hope you're hyped up just like I am. This is huge. Like, this isn't just your average, oh, they went and got good players. They got a great player, spectacular, who does it all. And if Cronin's going to be tough on him, he is ready and expectant of it as a veteran player, all right? And Cronin already talks about his relationship with Pitino and the Petinos. So it's not like Richard Pitino's going to be like some slouch that doesn't coach him. No. This guy is coached up, ready to go, didn't follow his coach east, stayed on the West Coast, and finds his way in UCLA blue and gold. Huge. Can't wait to see him in a UCLA uniform next year. Absolutely huge for the Bruins. Like, that maybe starts moving dominoes, because sometimes you see these guys in recruiting and you're like, they want to go play with the better, the good, the great. They want to go play with these guys, and they want to follow where the other players are going. And of course, they might want their NIL money, but maybe they take a little bit less to come to UCLA and say, hey, look at what they're building there. Maybe a center of some sort will decide to do the same thing and work their way to UCLA. But that's a huge get for Cronin, who has been stressing through last year missing the tournament. This year, a disappointment, an absolute disappointment. They got back to the tournament, the bare minimum as a UCLA standard, the bare minimum getting to the tournament. Now next year, sky high expectations. Work to be done, but you get the number 2 recruit in all the land in the transfer portal, better than any player you probably could have gotten to do things for your roster. Expectations have increased. I am excited. Hope you are too. Let's tell you about FanDuel, right? Because if you're a new customer, head to FanDuel, maybe you're watching March Madness, it gets you a chance to get in the action like never before. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories, to even who's cutting down the nets. FanDuel app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
It's going to wrap it up for us here on Locked On UCLA. The big get for the Bruins. Absolutely huge. Absolutely. Domination there for Mick Cronin in the portal. Talks about how he's his own GM. Barking for more NIL support. I was reading that this was maybe upwards of $3 million. Okay. Tell me what you think. Who knows where it could be? I'm not sure what the actual numbers ended up being. If he took a discount, I don't know those numbers. I don't see them in front of me. I haven't read them. But UCLA went out and got a big get in the portal, and that could change things moving forward for Mick Cronin. That's the difference between him going on a warm, slowly moving hot seat into next season to UCLA. They better be packing out Pauley Pavilion. You better get to look at some Donovan Dent highlights, get some Donovan Dent jerseys and that NIL support, and be prepared for UCLA to come ready to play next year. Because, man, oh, man, you add him to that lineup, game-changing. Absolutely game-changing. We're going to get our hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.